Today we're going to take a look at Phanteks Glacier One 240mm AIO water cooler with D30 fans. This has to be one of the best looking AIOs on the market right now, plus it offers very good compatibility even with very compact cases. And that was one of the main reasons I decided to pick one up. Inside of the box you will find two manuals, one for the pump, the second one for the fans. They will be really helpful later on when we'll assemble and install the whole thing. You also get a set of screws, intermounting plate which you need to install on Intel motherboards, 2 or 3 fans depending on which model you went for, and the AIO itself. Everything is really nicely packed. The tubes that come with the AIO are a good mix of sturdy and flexible, allowing you to route them inside of your box really nicely. The pump has thermal paste pre-applied and is protected by a plastic cover. By default it has Intel mounting plate attached. I'll replace it with AMD mounting plate later on, as this AIO will help me cool my 7800X3D. The accessories include separate mounting sets for AMD and Intel CPUs, screws to attach everything to your case, and tube clips which help you route the tubes inside of your case and make them look more aesthetic. There's also adapters which allow you to connect the pump and fans to RGB headers on the motherboard, as well as a SATA to pump power adapter which allows you to power the pump in case your motherboard doesn't have a dedicated AIO or pump header. Finally, there's mounting screws which attach the pump to the motherboard and fix everything in place, using screws with spring for optimal pressure. And the already mentioned AMD mounting bracket, which we'll install in just a moment, as well as the Intel mounting plate. The whole assembly is really simple and easy, and if you follow the manual carefully, you should not encounter any difficulties. Let's start with installing the fans. Remember to remove the stickers, which also indicate where you need to connect the power and RGB connector. First thing you need to do is to decide where you'll mount the fans. There's two ways: standard, where you mount the fans at the bottom of the radiator, or sandwiched, where the fans are between the radiator and the case. I opted for the classic mount. For this I will need a set of screws which has a separate screws for fans and for mounting the radiator on the case. The sandwich way uses just one set of longer screws which attach both the fans and the radiator to the case. I installed the fans so that the in connector is next to the tubes. Just align the threads on the fans with the threads on the radiator and install the screws. Next thing we'll do is attach the cables which provide power and RGB signal to the fans. Like I said, the in part is next to tubes, so for me that's where the connector attaches. For you it might be different, so make sure to double check. First, insert the outer part of the connector and then start pushing in until it clicks in place. Next, we'll use the bridge adapter to connect both of the fans together. Same as before, start with the outer part and start pushing it in until it latches firmly in place and you'll hear a loud click. Finally, we'll install all of the covers. There's 4 corner covers and 1 middle cover where the fans meet. They help hide the mounting threads which stick on the side of the fans where the screws are hidden. The final effect makes the radiator look much cleaner. Next are the screw covers which help you hide the heads of the screws. There's 6 in total, 4 for each of the corners and 2 for where the fans meet. Before I start installing the AIO onto my CPU, I am going to replace the Intel bracket with AMD one. If you will use it with Intel CPU, you can just skip this step. It takes a bit of strength to remove and install the brackets, but just take your time. In the next step I installed the case mounting brackets onto the radiator. Now it's time to install the screws which will attach the AIO onto the motherboard. For AMD you just screw them in onto pre-installed threads that come with the motherboard after removing the pre-installed cooler mount. For Intel you need to attach the backplate. If you have any doubts on how to do that, just check the included manual. After you do that, install the pump using the brackets and get the spring screws which will hold the AIO in place. Try not to fully screw down one corner, rather gradually screw down, moving to the opposite corners of the AIO to help build even distribution of the paste and pressure. Right now it's time to connect the fan and RGB cables to the motherboard. First, in the manual, find the right headers for your mobile. This will save you some headache later on. We'll connect the pump first. Find the cable you see on the screen and connect it to your pump or AIO header. If you don't have one, you can use the SATA converter and plug it in straight to your power supply. Second, we'll connect the RGB converter, as my motherboard uses the more modern 3-pin ARGB connector, and then connect it to the ARGB header. Next, we'll connect the fans. In order to have RGB on both the pump and fans, you need to connect fan RGB inlet to the pump RGB daisy chain connector. That's all. And finally connect the fan control cable to the motherboard. It's basically the same as pump connector. I suggest plugging it into CPU fan header to stop the motherboard from throwing warnings at you when you first start the PC. And that's it. All you need to do is set the curves for your case to optimize the cooling potential. This is how the Phanteks Glacier One 240 AIO looks like in a compact case like the N-Case M1 Evo. Thanks for watching and I'll see you soon.